Well, if you're looking for the definitive review of Dr. Joe Dispenza, look no further. I'm only partially kidding. Dr. Joe is somebody I really don't mention that much on my channel, even though clients and people I speak to uh, mention him and ask me about him sometimes. And the reason why I'm actually going to explain to you in a way that is probably more in depth in this short video than any of the pro and con conversations surrounding Dr. Joe that you usually hear. From what I've seen, generally speaking, and this is not a surprise if you know the manifestation woo woo space, people either tend to be all in on Dr. Joe, like when you watch the videos about his meditation retreats and the style of his teachings, or they tend to be super negative, like, he's a scam, he's a charlatan, etc. What I'm about to share is different because, unlike most people speaking about Dr. Joe, I have a little bit of historical perspective when it comes to these ideas. And I don't mean that pretentiously. I mean, listen, we're all full of baloney. Certainly I am. Certainly Dr. Joe is. Certainly everybody is when it comes to talking about this stuff because it's very complicated. But I specialize in looking at some of the historical figures that influenced people like Dr. Joe. And because of that, my opinion is probably a little bit more balanced and pragmatic than most you hear when it comes to, the quantum manifestation philosophy of Dr. Joe. So let's just get right to it. And if you're interested, there is going to be a free group coaching session this Friday. If you get to this video right after it comes out, link will be in the description if you want Zoom info for that before Friday. Dr. Joe is so popular in large part because of how he presents his material. He's, a charismatic guy with a great backstory. Pun intended, I guess. He broke his back and he healed himself using, the techniques that he's become popular talking about and preaching about. However, what I think most people don't understand in the space is Dr. Joe is the kind of guy that if you get behind his approach and like his meditations, like the way he speaks about this stuff, it will probably work pretty well for you, at least for a while. And if you don't like Dr. Joe and think that he kind of sounds like a snake oil salesman and is like way too, I'm going to sell you this car type vibe, if you think about him in that way, it probably will not work for you. And the reason for that is actually summed up pretty well in one of his books, probably my favorite book of Dr. Joe's. I haven't read them all, but a book titled You Are the Placebo. I believe it's called that. Isn't it called that? You Are the Placebo. Gosh, I haven't read that book in years. The beginning of that book is phenomenal. Dr. Joe, the chiropractor, because remember, guys, he calls himself a doctor, but he's really a chiropractor, which is cool. Nothing wrong with that. But the doctor thing is kind of a marketing, technique, and Dr. Joe is so into marketing techniques. Dr. Joe is really good at talking about placebo. And I don't know at this point how much he's conscious of how effective his approach is for people because of placebo and how much of it is, he thinks is because of the quantum woo stuff that he's sharing in these meditation retreats, etc., which honestly reminds me of like a Tony Robbins retreat and stuff like that when I hear about it now. What Dispenza is getting at, really, this is the main point of the video. What Dispenza is getting at, or at least 90% of what Dispenza is getting at, is explained much more soberly, much more clearly, and in my opinion will probably be much more effective for you if you simply study Emil Coué. Emil Coué is talking about what Joe Dispenza is writing about without all the ridiculous woo-woo terminology, which is, most of the time just bunk nonsense. This stuff is not quantum, it's psychological most of the time. Dr. Joe, despite what people say, is not some brilliant quantum physicist, scientist guy. He's really good at using that language to excite people and to get people into a trance to believe that they are changing. But Emil Coué who's my favorite manifestation type of teacher, and was much, much, much more effective than Dr. Joe at helping people heal themselves. I want to emphasize that again. Coué was much, 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 much more effective than Dr. Joe at having people help heal themselves. Explains the stuff that Dispenza sensationalizes in a much more down-to-earth, practical manner. So you actually understand it without all the woo. See, Dispenza's stuff works. And again, listen, this might sound like I'm being critical of Dispenza. I'm not being overly critical. I do think he's got used car salesman vibes, but I think a lot of what he shares is wonderful, and I totally get it when his meditations and his advice helps people. But what he's sharing is basically just a woo-woo, hyped-up marketing version of what Coué soberly shared 100 years ago. We have over 100 videos of Coué's approach where I'm breaking it down and talking about it on this channel. Link will be in the description. Or you can read some of, the works about Coué or Coué's writings himself, that he wrote himself. If you look at that stuff, you're going to understand the placebo effect in a good way. I do not mean placebo negatively. And you are going to understand what self-hypnosis really means in regards to healing yourself and improving your life in a way that Dr. Joe probably will not make very clear to you. Coué makes it abundantly clear why it works, and just as importantly, why it does not work. Because Dr. Joe, like all of these guys who are marketing pros, helps a lot of people, but he also does not have as high success rates as you would believe if you just, believe all the marketing hype. And Dr. Joe says a bunch of crazy shit. And again, we all say wild shit, but Dr. Joe says a bunch of crazy shit. So the point of this video is not to knock Dr. Joe, but it is to put him in his right contextual place. And for you to realize that if you're curious about what Dr. Joe is saying, but feel like he doesn't explain it well enough and get kind of, odd markety vibes from him, like I think a lot of us do, you can just look at Coué. And it's going to seem a lot more sane, sober, practical, and probably be a lot more helpful. So I hope that this short video was a helpful expose of Dr. Joe and that you got something out of it.